Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Master Sight. I am Adam Ballard, and today we're going to be going over the Kings of Winter tournament pack, as well as my list and army that I'm taking. As you could see from the intro, I will be taking Empire of Dust, so putting the elves on the shelf for now. Um, and we'll discuss a little bit why that is here. So first we're going to go through the player pack and the scenarios, and then we'll dive into my list that I'm taking, and go from there. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Here is the player pack behind me here. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, just the important parts. So bear with me. So Army's 2,400 points, 5 games, pretty standard. So tournament will be this upcoming weekend, the 14th and 15th of January. So along with the 2,400 points, they have a Frost Monster, Frost Drakon, or Frost Chariot that you can choose from, and their profiles are as follows. So the Frost Monster um, is speed 6. All of them are going to be melee 3, defense 5, 5 attacks. Dash 14 nerve, height 5, so monster on a 50. The monster has Crush 1, Ensnare, Nimble, Stealthy, and Strider. And then the really cool thing about the monster is that before you even start deployment for your game, you roll 2 dice, and then you gain an aura from one of those 2 dice. If you roll doubles, then you're stuck with that particular aura. So the auras that you could potentially get are Spell Ward, Rally 1, Dread, Radiance of Life, Cloak of Death, or Wild Charge +1. Part of the reason I chose EoD is because they really benefit from some of these auras. The two main ones I'm looking for are going to be either Rally or Radiance of Life. EoD, the way that I play them anyway, has access to pretty much every healing mechanic in the game besides Radiance of Life, so adding that into them really puts them over the top when it comes to wound recovery. Rally 1 is just great for fearless units in general. So, like that. I'd say secondary options I'm looking for are Cloak of Death, then Dread. I am really not looking at Spell Ward. Even if I'm versing a heavy spell casting army, the Spell Ward hurts me when I'm trying to heal or surge my own units. So, Wild Charge +1 is okay, but those middle 4 are really the ones that I'm looking for. So yeah, I'm taking the Frost Monster. I think it's going to be great, and then I think it has a pretty stout profile, being Ensnare, nimble, stealthy. It's not going to put out a whole lot of damage, but it's going to stick around and be tough to remove, which it's a part of my army as well, so I can heal it. I can get Drain Life heals into it, so I think that it will work pretty well for me. The other options that we may see throughout, the Frost Drakon, it's on a 75 by 75, so it's actually a Dragon Light, but has all the the 75 base versus the 50. So speed 10 and flying, again melee 3, defense 5, 5 attacks. It's a dash 15 nerve, so one higher than the monster that was dash 14. But it is height 6. So the Drakon comes with Crush 2, Slayer D3, Fly, Nimble, Stealthy. And then the Drakon special ability is effectively just Scorched Earth that also applies the Frozen mechanic, so the unit is -1 speed. So fine and dandy, but you're really paying for the combat potential with this guy versus a support of the other guy. And the third option is the Frost Chariot. So speed 7, same melee, defense, and attacks. It is also a dash 15, height 4 chariot. It has once per game gains speed 10 and fly, and then it is nimble, and Aura Stealthy Crush 1 Thunder 1. So the Aura Stealthy, I think it's going to be a big factor for kind of the types of armies we expect to see. As well as some of the other scenarios and rules that we'll go through here. But I don't think shooting armies are really going to have a good time in this particular tournament because of some of these rules. So we'll see if I'm right, but it's definitely been part of my conscious choice of taking Empire Dust instead of an elf army that relies more on shooting. So yeah, all three of these options are great. I think they all have purpose, and I expect that we'll probably run into at least one of each of them in the tournament. So I think they did a very good job of balancing them in general. So we will continue on. Chess clock, 65 minutes, yada yada. The next thing we want to talk about is terrain. So kind of unique. Force are height 7, so height 5 and height 6 can sit on a hill and see over them. Okay, not my favorite, but it is what it is. But then impassable are height 6, so height 4, 5, and 6 can see over them when sitting on a hill. That's really, I don't know. I just personally don't care for that. I'd rather block line of sights altogether with certain pieces of terrain, but they do have set map packs, so the terrain will be set each round based off of what they show to us. We don't know exactly what it looks like for every round, so we'll find out when we get there. And then the other slightly unique thing is normally terrain that would be considered flat is height 1. So again, height 3 and lower will gain shooting by or gain cover from shooting by sitting behind them, which it helps my army, and I will have stuff that's tall enough to see over these things when I'm sitting on a hill. So again, the terrain rules are kind of unique. I don't really care for them, but I have consciously made some choices in order to utilize pieces accordingly. So they go over paint and sportsmanship. Otherwise, the scoring. So blackjack scoring, 21 points possible for those that are unfamiliar with it. And then they have an extra point that will be awarded each round by accomplishing 3 objectives for 1 point. So we'll see an example of that here. So an example sheet would be here. So win-loss draw is going to be 14, 10, 7. The scenario gives you plus to minus 4 for winning bigger on scenario or losing more on scenario. Attrition points are up to a plus or minus of 3. And then an example of the extra bonus point to potentially get 22 points each game. I'm going to just say Frost Monster to make it easy because that's what I'm playing. So the Frost Monster fights in combat. You killed your opponent's Frost Monster, and your Frost Monster is alive at the end of the game. So if you accomplish all 3 of those, you get 1 extra point. And it does say that these are what's used for any sort of tiebreaker. So if you accomplish this more than whoever you're tied with, you win the tiebreaker. I think it's fine. It seems like a lot to accomplish for a single extra point, but I do like adding additional objectives into the game. I think that lets people kind of play on and play for more points, even if the battle itself is already lost. So definitely approve of that. So next we're going to jump into the scenarios. They released the scenarios already, so we know each of the 5 scenarios that we will be playing. We don't necessarily know the order, but we know that we will be playing each of these at least once. Some of these are out of the book, others are modified, and some are just new scenarios that I haven't seen or played before. So I like that they have a kind of a good balance and combination. So first one they have listed is Eliminate. So I'm going to just oversimplify here, but essentially your three most expensive units and your opponent's three most expensive units are considered a bounty. Your goal is to kill your opponent's bounty units. There is one objective marker in the exact center of the board. So victory points are awarded for one for holding the central objective token, one for routing an enemy bounty with shooting, and three for routing it in melee. So again, a stealthy aura, kind of different terrain, and then also a deterrent from shooting the key units in the objective. Again, I don't think shooting's going to have a good time at all here. So I like this scenario. I could honestly, I think 1 to 3 is quite a big difference. I would like this to be a 1 point gap. So even if this victory shooting goes up to a 2 or melee goes down to a 2, I think it would be much more balanced. But you could have a shooting army and shoot all three of your opponents' bounties off, and they kill one of yours in melee, and that's just a wash at that point. So I think it's a fine scenario. I just think that it heavily favors combat armies and severely punishes shooting armies. So next scenario, Occupy. So again, gonna oversimplify here. I don't like the wording on this in general, but essentially there is a token in the middle of the board, and then you and your opponent will each place a token within 6 inches of the center line. All of those tokens are going to be worth 1 victory point, and then you and your opponent place a token anywhere 9 from the board edge to 9 inches of the center line. Or I'm sorry, from this, it's a 9 inches from the center line. It has to be 6 inches from the board edge. And those are called the primary objectives. So you can only score 2 victory points from the primary objective on your opponent's half of the board. So the one on your side doesn't count towards you, but you can control it to prevent your opponent from taking those points. So, yeah, I think it's a fine scenario. Like I said, I just think that it's really wordy for what it actually is, but sometimes that has to be done. So. We are then also going to be playing Push. So Push here is straight out of the book, except for one caveat. They have that when you're placing loot tokens at the beginning of the game, you cannot place more than one loot token in each unit. So if I have a unit of skeletons, I can't give the skeletons all 3 tokens. I can give the skeletons 1. I can give a mummies another, and so on and so on. So that stops it from being there at the beginning of the game, but you can do the dropping and picking up in your first turn of movement and get them all 3 onto a single unit. It just requires a little bit of maneuvering. So I actually really like this alteration to Push. I think that in a lot of scenarios with Push, you get just three on one side, 3 on the other, and then they each push across, and then you're fighting over the center token, which, again, this scenario being out of the book will have that center token. So I like the fact that you can get all 3 onto one, but it will take a little maneuvering to do that. So we'll see how it plays. The next scenario is called Hold the Line. I think this is my favorite scenario that they have here. It's different unique. I don't think I've ever played this one before anywhere else. So it's a combination of kind of dominate and control in my eyes. So effectively, you're controlling area boxes like control. So these green boxes here are worth nothing. The yellow box, so all these boxes are 6 inches off the center line each way. So it's going to be a 12 by 24 box for both of them. The outside ones are worth 2 victory points each. The middle one's worth 3. And there you go. So I think this is a very well designed scenario. The only possibility of tying is if nobody controls anything or the middle's not controlled and each player controls 1 on each side. Otherwise, unlike Dominate, you can't just pile everything into the middle because you could give up both flanks and then your opponent wins. Or what I think is more realistic is people are going to probably play for the center plus one of the flanks. But who knows? We will see. And then the last scenario is Invade, straight out of the book. So again, I think that shooting is heavily impacted by these scenarios. You have invade, you want to get across the board. You have push, you want to get across the board. You have the first scenario, eliminate, where you don't actually want to shoot the units that you're trying to kill because you don't get as many victory points for them. And then occupy, to a certain extent, you're trying to get across the board. The only one that you're not really trying to get across the board is this hold the line. So effectively, in my mind, 4 out of the 5 scenarios are heavily weighted in the favor of a melee style army versus a shooting style army. So on top of having a stealthy aura and having terrain rules that I could see the argument that they benefit shooting as well as against shooting, but I think that there's just so many things against shooting that elves probably would not do very well in this particular tournament. So I decided to take my EoD. So let's go ahead and go through my list. So I'm just pulling the army that I have had for a while here. I started EoD at the very beginning of 3rd edition. I started assembling them before 3rd edition even dropped. But at the time, I wanted to play a very infantry-focused EoD, so that's what I have and that's what I play, and I think it's a lot of fun. So I'm going back to that. So I start off with 2 skeleton spearmen regiments and a horde of skeleton warriors in the center there. I think the spearmen are one of the most undervalued units in the entire game for what they do. I think their price point is great, and that unit strength 3 surprises a lot of people. So they're very often underrated by my opponents, and yeah, so they always make my list. Next, because it's 2,400 points, I've effectively added a troop of mummies. Normally I only play with a regiment, but I have a troop and a regiment of mummies, both, so everything so far without magic items. I like mummies. I like a regiment of mummies. I think a troop of mummies is going to be pretty good for more of a thick chaff type role. The regiment of mummies is always super stout, and then when they get into a flank, they can threaten in combat. But realistically, I'm not trying to use them as the major threat. They're just there to hold objectives and hold strong with that dash 18, defense 5, and regen backing them up. So you'll notice I have a couple of models missing here. I need to do some gluing before the tournament, but and then I have 2 hordes of Enslaved Guardians. So the way I modeled these guys up, you'll see the back row has archers, so they're all in regiment forms here. So a typical EoD army that I've taken in the past has 2 Enslaved Guardian archer hordes. But again, with what we discussed with the lack of shooting benefits, I went with the melee guys instead. So I put the archer regiment part in the back and the melee guys in front, and there we go. So multi-purpose. Um, uh, and it also should be said, everything, not everything, but 90% of the army is Mantic models. So, and I did do this before their most recent EoD model release. So they are some of the older models, but I especially like the infantry. I've included a couple of different like revenants in with them, with the mummies and things like that. So they are 90% Mantic throughout the army. So next, I have 2 regiments of Scavengers. They are great, best chaff in EoD. So I always take 2 with me wherever I go. Unfortunately, Mantic doesn't have Scavenger models, and Murder Birds were out of stock at the time, so these did not get made in Mantic. So next, we have Soul Snare. Again, need some TLC here, missing an arm and whatnot, but that's an old GW casket, obviously. Um, yeah, Soul Snare is great. Gotta love it. So, as we continue on, I have an Undead Worm. So this here is a ridiculously large model. It's so there's a story behind this. So this originally wasn't in the EoD when I created them, but I went to Dragonfall GT in 2021 in Chicago, and for the tournament they give you a big ass, super badass dragon model, or not model, but you get a free dragon with your army. So I used my friend Tim Lonis, War Chest Creations, to 3D print me a cool looking dragon that I could use, and it turned out bigger than I was expecting. So the pyramid base here is the 75 by 75. Yeah, they're better pictures. So a lot of times this dragon, being as big as it is, gets put off to the side and the pyramid base stays where it actually is. Um, so it's the dragon actually gained a nickname because it is so big. So this dragon is known as Lord Overcompensating. So he makes my list. Next, I have my Monolith. Um, Another 3D print, but gotta love the Monolith. It's in every EoD army. I have Sebic Ray, the Accursed. And then next I have a Pharaoh on Chariot, who has the Blade of Slashing and Host Shadow Beast 3. So I need to rebase this guy onto the base so that my basing matches. But this is a GW Chariot. Again, I made or had these before the Mantic ones came out. So this is this particular Chariot is a new addition to my EoD. I've never played with a Chariot character before, so this is really the experiment that I'm trying out in this tournament. So we'll see. I'm hoping that he has a good attack profile base. Blade of Slashing is effectively an extra attack, and with Host Shadow Beast added in there, he's Spellcaster 2, so he gets 4 additional attacks, hitting on 3s, crushing 3. I think this guy can give some people some headaches, along with just being naturally pretty defensive. So I'm excited to see how this guy plays and works out. And then, of course, in my opinion, at least infantry, EoD, Idol Ashobik is needed. So he is in the list as well. So then I took the monster for the tournament as we discussed earlier. So I'm using one of my Bone Giants as the monster. So he's going to fit right in. So there's a picture of the overall army here. So in total, we have 15 units and 25 unit strength. So pretty solid. Yeah, it's been a little bit since I played EoD. I've gotten one practice game in, but it's just like riding a bike. So every army should just pick right back up where you left them off. Yeah, I'm excited for the tournament. Looking to have a lot of fun. This is the first time I'll be at Kings of Winter. Normally they have it in December, like beginning to middle of December, and that just doesn't usually work around family Christmases and stuff like that. So I'm excited that they were able to move it to January this year. That's allowed me to go anyway, so I'm looking forward to it. We should have a good time. I'm pretty sure we have a good showing. I think it was around 30 or so players. So I know from Omaha it's going to be me, Billy, Travis, and Travis's little brother Lucas is going with us too. So we'll have a good showing, and we are doing a fun thing. We've rented an Airbnb, and we have like 10 guys or so that are going to be crashing all at the Airbnb. So it should be a lot of fun outside of the games, just hanging out, having dinner together, drinking and whatnot on Friday night, Saturday night. So really looking forward to this one, and I think it'll be a good way to kick off the year. So excited. But that's all I have for you tonight. So next time you'll see me, it'll be for our Game 1 review of Kings of Winter. So stay tuned and come on back and check it out. I appreciate everybody. Thank you.